Now magazine was one of the worst experiences in my journalism career. And I remember at the time, the PA at Now, he was a guy and he treated me like crap. And I remember one day he turned to me and said, if it doesn't work out, you can always work at Starbucks. And I can never forget that moment. And I remember I just said, I'm going to leave. At that comment, I was just like, I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I went back to an internship at another publication I was working for. And they was like, yeah, you can come back.
No Bullshit Talks is a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. There's too much bullshit out there, especially when it comes to business. This podcast aims to highlight what's true and what's not in the world of entrepreneurship, bringing you honest and raw conversations about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship. Each week, my guest will be a high-performing entrepreneur sharing the ups and downs of their journey and helping you prepare for the road ahead, while providing you with actionable insights and absolute gems of knowledge. Stay tuned as I introduce this week's guest. Tobi Oredein is an award-winning women's lifestyle journalist, media entrepreneur and international public speaker. She's a founder of Black Ballad, which is a media membership platform for and by Black women in the UK. She's a TEDx speaker and a huge advocate for Black women in the UK, even managing to put 56 women on a billboard all around the UK this year in partnership with Google. I present to you this week's guest, Tobi Oredein. So welcome, Tobi, to No Bullshit Talks.
Thank you for having me. I love the sign. I love the neon pink.
Thank you.
Love me.
I was like, it's very me, but I'm not wearing pink today. I'm wearing green. I did actually put this shirt on thinking, that doesn't go really well with pink. And should I think this through? But then I thought, I'm in a green mood today.
No, you look like you're great.
Thank you. So I would love for you to introduce yourself, because I feel like that's a good way of doing it and letting people know what you do.
Hey, so my name is Tobi Oredein and I am the founder and CEO of Black Ballad. Black Ballad is a media membership platform for and by Black women in Britain and beyond. Don't know why I had a blank then. I was like, I was like, what do I do? But yeah, as I said, Black Ballad is a media membership platform for and by Black women in Britain and beyond.
So do you know what? I think when you describe it like that, you're underplaying how incredible what you do is, because it's so hard. Like you said, you're like, what do I do? And it's like hard to describe it to people. And obviously that is literally what you do.
Yeah.
But Black Ballad is, I would say, more like a movement.
Oh, okay. That's very complimentary. Thank you. I'll take that.
How do you think it's a compliment? I think it is. I think it's like, it's such an incredible thing that obviously so many people resonate with and want to get behind. Yeah. So, and whilst it is a membership platform and that's what you guys do, tell people why you started Black Ballad, because I think that will then bring out exactly what it's about.
I always say, in complete honesty, it was both selfish desire and wanting to really give Black women what they deserved in the media. So taking it back, my profession is I'm a journalist, so I've worked and written for like all the major women's lifestyle platforms and publications such as Stylist, Elle, Grazia. My last job before I went full-time on Black Ballad was actually on the writer's desk at the BBC. And I was always looking at the intersection of race, feminism, I called it beauty politics, pop culture. And when I was in these offices, Black women were really invisible. And if we were visible, it was a particular type of Black woman. And, we're Black women, we look very different. And I would say the Black woman that was visible in magazines, it just didn't look anything like me. So I was like, what? Why is that happening? Mm-hmm. And then when you add in, at the time, City University had this statistic that only, I think it's 0.2% of journalists are Black. And when you think about, I don't want to say the heart of journalism, but, journalism really revolves around London, let's be honest. And we made up 3% then, Black people made up 3% of the population in London at the time. 13%, sorry, 3% of the UK. I just felt those statistics were awful and it explained a lot of why Black women in the Black community are described in certain ways. So I think, applying for jobs and not getting jobs, I was like, okay, well, if we're looking at this stat, well, it's no wonder I'm not getting a job because they're not even looking for people like me in the offices. It's the numbers show that, and the experiences I had in some of the offices were very reflective of that. And then if you look at statistic on, I guess, the reader side, well, we're not going to be represented accurately or fairly because we're just not in the office to even have those discussions and to inform and influence opinions. So as I said, it was both selfish desire of wanting a job, and I'm just, I feel like writing it was my passion then, if I'm honest. I'll say was. And then just wanting to see Black women represented fairly, both kind of came together. And I was just like, I had enough. I just said, you know what? I'm going to give myself a job. I'm not going to keep asking. I'm going to be honest, white people to give me a job. I'm just not going to ask for permission to represent myself in these publications. And, I also would think it's important to say, timing is really important, because when I started Black Ballad, the internet kind of, it lowered the barrier to entry. I didn't have to have a lot of money to start a publication. It wasn't like I had to have thousands of pounds to start a print publication. I'm not from money. I'm from a working class background. So I wouldn't have been able to have had, like sort of financial family support in that way. So definitely that's how it started. Those were the passions and reasons. And I think it's really important to say that I think I'm a really sort of lucky benefactor of timing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are, if you think about all the most successful businesses, a lot of it has to do with timing, and people don't realise that, and they put it all down to the founders or whatever, but it's a lot of it is timing, so it's fair enough that you recognise that. But I think so much of what you said really resonated about, like, don't try and wait for a seat at the table, create your own damn seat, like, and that's it. And it's like, and I just think you've just done that, which is brilliant. But it's also making me think now, because, as we're recording this, and I appreciate it's going to come out in a couple of weeks, but as we're recording this, we're still very much in the middle of the Euros. And yes, I cannot stand, like, I'm a huge football fan. Like, I've been a diehard football fan.
Who do you support?
I support Liverpool.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so but I've been like that since I was 4 years old, and I'm like really, really, really passionate about football all year round. I get really upset when I support England. Like, I find it really hard because, I think it started back when I would have been the 2004 World Cup.
Okay.
Where Heskey messed up, and I was on the way home from the pub and I got beaten the crap out of in the middle of a car park at the train station.
Jesus.
And they were just throwing the N-word around and saying, you guys screw up everything for our country. And that was the first time I kind of understood. Like, I didn't understand it at the time. Yeah. And, like, it put me off, like, being an England fan. And it's funny, like, whereas I'm born and bred here. Yeah. So I am English, and I don't see myself as Black, obviously, but I have multicultural heritage. Mm-hmm. But I'm so English because I'm born and raised here. So what else am I supposed to be? Yeah. But because I look this way, I find it really hard. And at the moment now, we've got the same situation. And I actually think I just sent out a tweet just before we came here. And I was saying that, in Euro 90 and 2018, our Black kids missed penalties and the world turned really racist against them. Yeah. And they went home and scored all the penalties, and now they're being called arrogant, and like, it's just like they can't win. And I just think, like, there's something about England football that brings out all the disgusting hate and like vitriol, and it really makes me sad. And then the journalism is what makes you think of it, because the way the papers spin stuff is just so vile and quite clearly racist. Yeah. But then if you say it's racist, then you get accused of having a chip on your shoulder and bringing up race. And then if you don't bring it up, and then someone else said something positive about the Black kids, and they're like, why are you making it about race? And I'm like, you can't win. Like, what do you do? And it's like, I'm like infuriated here. And I just sit there like, what is anyone supposed to do in those situations? And you have been living in that like bubble. That's what you did as a job. And no wonder it took you to go create your own thing. But how bad was it inside like journalist circles like this? Like you said, I just think the representation is awful.
So I think one of the experiences I'll actually... You know what? It's been long enough. I think I've never said the publication. I had an internship at Now. I don't know if you remember Now.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember when Whitney Houston died, and they were creating like, they did these like souvenir sort of like spin-off like magazines, like paying tribute to her. And I and another woman are the only black women in the office. And she's like a contractor, so she's coming in and out. So I'm the only black person in the office. And I am an intern, Feddies. And it's funny because I can actually hear the conversation in my head now. And
this would have been years ago, right?
Years ago.
With you.
Yeah, because I'm 34 now, turning 35. And they had put together this issue, and they had printed a child's photo of Whitney Houston, but it was Oprah Winfrey. And I saw it immediately, and I was like, that's Oprah Winfrey. And I remember, like, maybe, like, do you know what? Part of me is like, as an intern, should I just, like, maybe not say anything? But I'm like, no. So I was like to someone, oh, by the way, you do know that's Oprah Winfrey, right? That's not Whitney Houston. And they was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And, you know, these are all white women. I even remember the names of the women. I actually remember the names of the women. And I remember the first woman was like, I don't know who she thinks she is. Yeah, I don't know who she thinks she is. Oh, it's effing been printed now. So what would you want us to do? Oh, I don't know who she thinks she is. And I can see their faces. And I remember at the time feeling so hot. And I felt like I'd done something really wrong. And I was about 21. I was about 21. And I remember feeling really, really hot and like, oh my God. And the whole desk of white women were talking about me. And like, they just didn't give a damn. I remember, and you have to think that probably the youngest person on that desk probably was about 25, 26. And the two women that were really going at it, they would have been in their late 30s at least. And I would say that was Now magazine was one of the worst experiences in my journalism career. And I remember at the time, the PA at Now, he was a guy, and he treated me like crap. And I remember one day he turned to me and said, if it doesn't work out, you know, you can always work at Starbucks. And I can never forget that moment. And I remember I just said, I'm going to leave. At that comment, I was just like, I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I went back to an internship at another publication I was working for, and they was like, yeah, you can come back. And that was an okay experience, that publication. I learned a lot there, but I would definitely say Now magazine was when I first experienced microaggressions as a black woman. That was when I first experienced it. So yeah, I've been in it. I've experienced it. And I think the one thing about journalism is people, especially what keeps the racism going around in journalism, is that journalists always say, it's a small circle. So, don't say too much because you won't get a job. Well, no one gave me a job. So like, what the hell does it matter to me? Do you know what I mean? Not one person gave me a job. So this isn't going to matter. But yeah, I say Now magazine was the nastiest place that I worked at, 100%.
It's crazy, those memories that really stick with you, and people don't realise how their words form you and actually change what you...
And as I say, the two women that were really talking about me and going at it, I remember their full names to this day. I remember their full names. I know what they look like. And it's like, especially because it's when you're first going into journalism, and maybe it's just a human thing, you do remember the bad things.
You do.
You do. So when I see all these things, I can imagine what's being said in those rooms. And I always think, I really feel sorry for the black kid that's probably an intern there, because if we feel bad reading it, I can tell you now, it is a million times worse being in the room.
So what are we supposed to do about it? Because I read these publications, and even ever since I was a kid, even I noticed it, like reading the paper, and like a crime would happen. And if it was a black person involved, they'd be like, this black person did this crime. But then if it wasn't a black person, they'd be like, this person did a crime. Yeah. And the race wouldn't even be mentioned. Yeah. They'd only be mentioned if they were black. Yeah. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, even I noticed that as a child. And I was like, but why do they do that? And I just think, like, I don't understand who officiates this, or who, like, you know, agrees that this is okay to do? Like, why is this allowed, and how does a publication process work in terms of like journalism? Why is no one being like, actually, this is racist, we can't post this?
I think it's because, you know, I won't pretend I have the answers or any, you know, the answers, but, you know, because the truth of the matter is there is still a certain cohort of society who lap up that sort of reporting, and they are working, and, you know, it's audience. Who is your audience? And that's the problem. Who is your audience? And one of the things that I've realised, being a journalist, people gather around the things they hate more than the people they love. And
rage bait.
It is. But even I think, yeah, it's kind of this rage. But like, if you've got I think one of the things in journalism is that if you notice, there's sort of like a common enemy, and like, you know, like even when you think about the elections that we've just had, and I think it was the Sun, so they were going to support Starmer. Mm-hmm. Their front page was the manager needs sacking. It wasn't we're supporting Starmer, it was that we want to get rid of Rishi Sunak. That was how they showed their support for Starmer. Journalism knows, in terms of audience, getting people to rally around things they hate sells and gets eyeballs and clicks more than things we love. And that's an unfortunate thing. And I actually think sometimes that's kind of been where Black Ballad has maybe definitely been different, and maybe not, people might say we're not grown as fast. It's taken us 10 years to get to do certain things, is because I made the very conscious effort of that I wasn't going to go down that route.
It's all positive.
Positive.
Yeah.
Things. Even when we have to discuss trauma, and when we have to discuss, you know, because no one's life is perfect. No experience is perfect. No, community or identity group lives in a perfect world and has a perfect life. So we have to discuss the hard things, right? But when we're discussing them, we make sure it's done with care, and we have a duty of care to the writer and to the audience. So we're very careful. And, you know, I have to credit Gisela Benson, our head of editorial. She's very mindful on how we get those things across. It's not going to be a rage clickbait sort of headline that's going to be super negative, that's going to get everyone to rally around. That is not what we do. So that's really the answer in terms of how I think, and the lessons that I've learned being in offices, of how this sort of thing works.
It makes sense. And I think, like, you know, bad news sells. And like, it is all like, news is just, that's why I don't like turning into the news, because it is just quite depressing, to be honest. And it's like, so, you know, let's talk about the more positive things, which is Black Ballad, and like the positive stories that you guys do, and you uplift people. And let's start with the fact that you've been around for 10 years now. This is nuts. Like, you've celebrated your 10-year anniversary. And as part of that, you guys launched a huge billboard campaign all across the UK.
Which you were in.
I was in, which is exciting. But that was honestly, I'm still like kind of in shock about it all. But we got to tell people about it, because it's such a huge achievement for you guys, what you guys pulled off. I was just on a little square. Like, whereas you guys pulled this insane thing off. And, you know, watching you guys on social media going the Visiting Award as well was really fun to see. But please tell us about that, because that is no small feat, and you must be mega proud of what you've done.
I am mega proud. I have to say that, you know, the reason it happened was, you know, I worked with another Black woman called Ramat Tajani at Google, who really championed Black Ballad for this campaign. So Ramat approached us about working together on some sort of campaign that was going to, you know, give visibility to Black women who kind of wanted careers in tech. That's kind of the idea of how it started. And then as we were talking and, you know, things happened, you know, the collaboration got delayed here and there, we started to kind of think about showing Black women off in the working world in general. And then Pixel got involved, and then it was kind of like, how do we work together? And I kind of had this idea of like, what if we just shot these like portraits of Black women from different industries on a pixel. And I was really clear that I really wanted this sentence of, this is what in my case, CEO looks like. This is what a web developer looks like, or this is what a doctor looks like. Because I honestly believe, and you know, people can say what they want, Black women are so important to the British workforce. When you think about how, whether it be, you know, those that came on the Windrush to be, you know, the fabric of, you know, the NHS in terms of like being nurses and stuff like that. Or, you know, those that worked in transportation when they came over. Or when, you know, when I think about, you know, I'm of Nigerian heritage and I identify as being British Nigerian, but when I think about, you know, my biological parents, and when I think about, you know, my in-laws and all the aunties and uncles I have, and when I think about the jobs that they did and how they've risen up the ranks, their contribution to the working society of Britain has kept it going. And I really feel that, like, you know, that is never really, it's kind of celebrated, but it's never really boldly said. It's kind of like, we're more than just cogs in the wheel. We bring a huge amount of money to this country in terms of whether it be as entrepreneurs or keeping systems going. So I wanted to celebrate that. And we shot 56 Black women, from doctors to content creators. We had barristers. We had, you know, HR professionals. We shot them over 3 days, which was very hectic, in the YouTube studios of Google. And we had an amazing photographer called Anna Pinto, and she shot everybody on a pixel. And then once we saw it, and then we worked with an amazing designer called Sabrina, who's not actually based in the UK, Black woman, and we started to see it, and I was like, I have to get this billboarded. Like, this has to be more than just on my site. Like, and it's not, and it also, you know, personally for me, you know, I've got 2 kids, and I want them to see something different from what I saw. Like, I love the fact that my daughter is obsessed with doctors, and the doctors she can name are Black doctors. I love that for her.
Love that too.
I really, really love that for her. So me and Ramak were talking, we was kind of planning, like, how do we get this billboarded? And we were actually supported by the Mayor's office, who gave us some free billboards.
Damn, I didn't know that. That's amazing, actually.
Yeah.
So they actually got behind this campaign.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Deputy Mayor is Debbie Bernard-Weeks. She's a Black woman, and she got behind the campaign and said, like, okay, cool. How can I help? And I said, I really want to make this visible around London. And it was really close to the wire. And about maybe like a week before, she said, we're going to get it billboarded. And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, and then we had billboards in like everywhere from Shoreditch to Croydon to Hackney, you know, all around London. And I was just so in awe of the fact that, one, the women who were in the campaign got to see themselves on a billboard. I got to take my children to it, and like my children like saw me, and I actually saw some other people that they recognized, because I had a few friends that were in it as well. And then I think the one that really got me was I went to see one in the London Bridge Southwark area, and there was a woman that was driving past, and she was taking pictures of the billboards. And we said, I said, are you in the campaign? And she was like, no, I just love it, and I love the work. And I was like, that's amazing. And then when we were walking, I would see Black women looking up, and they were like, oh my God, what is it? They were just looking up at it. And I was like, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted Black women to really see themselves, and everyone else to see us. And we are the modern face of the British workforce. I truly believe that. I think Black women are so pioneering in terms of, we're smashing a concrete ceiling, and the route to getting through that concrete ceiling takes a lot of resilience and perseverance and tenacity. And I believe that every single Black woman who was in that campaign has had to display those characteristics to get where they are now. So the billboard campaign with Google Women's International Day was just phenomenal, and still to this day, I think is my career highlight. Like I can't explain, even now as I'm talking about it and I'm smiling, I can't explain how it felt to get everyone on that billboard. Like, it's just amazing.
I mean, I can semi-understand, because I can understand 1/56 of it, because I was on that, and I can tell you from my perspective what it meant to me as well, because someone who is a Black woman in an industry where I don't know of a single other Black woman who runs a web design agency. Like, I just don't. Like, it just does. I've never met another Black female web developer.
Yeah.
And in my job, I consistently get asked, where is your male boss? Or like, can I speak to the guy in charge? And it's just, and it is. And I walk into a room and we're talking about tech, and they'll immediately assume that I don't know what I'm talking about just because I look the way I do. Yeah. And even if they're not necessarily racist or sexist, there are those unconscious biases that they don't even realize exist. And they will just not trust me as much as they trust the white male counterpart. Yep. And I've had this all my life, and even now, even today on a call they were going with another agency, I always look them up and it's just an all white male agency. Happens every single time. I look, they've got no good credentials, no good portfolio, but somehow they connected with them. And so to see my face on there and oh my God, the quality of people you got, like to be next to them and to also be in that same room when you threw that party at Google and they had in the offices and to meet them. And it was just this room of pure black girl magic, black excellence, all that stuff that you say. And it genuinely, I think, changed almost everyone's life in that room, because they realize, but it does. It's like you realize that I keep being like, oh my God, I think I was in this room actually when you sent that email, and I was like, I'm in a freaking billboard. Like, what the hell? Like, I couldn't really understand it. And then I was like, wait, all these women. And then I remember going through this list, and I just went, follow. I just followed all of these amazing women. And it was just like every day I was seeing these posts from all these women, and then seeing all the amazing stuff they did. And then you brought like 55 other amazing women into my life who are so inspiring that you can look up to. And I just think, I wish I had that when I was a kid, that I knew that there were these incredible black women out there smashing it in life who are all phenomenal humans, because I grew up being told that black people are inferior and that black women can't do it. And all my teachers that told me never to apply for medical school because I won't ever get in, or never do this, never do that. And all I've been told all my life is that I won't ever amount to anything. And if I had all these women to look up to, I just think you've set like this beautiful thing for all the future girls of tomorrow. So I think it's amazing.
Thank you so much. It means the world. As I said, like I'm so proud of that campaign, and I have to really say it was such a team effort to get it all across the line. You know, starting with Rama and Anna and Sharida and the Black Ballad team. Like it was a real sort of like, can we do this in 3 days? I'm still shocked that we shot everybody in 3 days and it came out so well. But like, as I said, that, I was more sort of like, this is the vision, can we execute? But I'm so, as I said, it's amazing to see us. And also one of the things I love is that it showed physically how there's no one specific look of a black woman, like so many different intersections. And we had a carbon rating scientist, and I remember being like, what is a carbon rating scientist? And I learned a lot. I learned a lot. And we had a cybersecurity underwriter. I learned a lot in that process. And even one of the most obvious ones, we had a black female dentist, and I had realised, and I grew up in Newham, multicultural area, I'd never had a black female dentist.
Interesting.
And
I've never met one either.
So I learned a hell of a lot. And I always think, personally for me, those are always the great projects on Black Ballad where I get to learn. So I'm really happy for how it came out.
Obviously, that campaign was unbelievably successful. What is next in the pipeline for Black Ballad?
It's our weekender on the 23rd, 24th of August. I think this is probably the biggest leap of faith I've ever had in doing this journey. But this whole idea of when we was thinking about 10 years, and I was like, actually, it wasn't last year, it was like the year before, we was like approaching, and we was like around the 8-year mark. I was like, we might get to 10 years. Like this thing is heading towards being sustainable, and like 10 years. And I was thinking about, what do I want to do? And my co-founder is actually my husband. So I talk about work quite a bit at home. And we were talking about what we want to do. And when I started Black Ballad, I actually did American Studies at King's College, and I took a lot of like modules that were around African American culture and history, and like your final papers, like dissertation essays, I'd always do something to do with African American history and politics and literature. And I did my dissertation on colorism, and I had a whole sort of chapter on Essence. So I was studying Essence and Ebony, and I was looking at these magazines, and that's part of the inspiration of why Black Ballad started. And obviously, not everyone will be familiar with Essence Fest, and it's this huge festival in America where Black women come together in New Orleans for 3 days, and they have talks and, you know, music and food, and it's just this amazing culture experience. And I didn't think we quite had anything in the UK like that. We've got the phenomenal Beauty Beat, which is focused on beauty, and then we've got I know we've had Black Girl Fest as well, and you know, Black British Business Show, which is just business. But I kind of still felt there was room for something that was for, you know, Black women and around, like, I guess mainly millennial age, and like, so I kind of thought, okay. And then our audience is kind of like millennial, Gen Z, then Gen X. And I was thinking, well, how could we do something that spans across all the generations? And I was like, you know what, I'm going to, you know, I'm a Christian, and I was like, I'm going to take a leap of faith on God, and I'm going to book a venue, and I'm going to do something really big. And also, one of the things I kind of felt, you know, being a Black entrepreneur and lasting for 10 years is a testament in itself. Mm-hmm. I battled investment, and I didn't get the sort of money that other people get. I also have to respect the fact that I'm in media, so it's not like tech. It's tech enabled, but it's not tech. So, you know, of course, all those factors come into play, but we can't downplay that Black women are least likely to get investments. So let's be honest and real. So it was like, I kind of had this thing, if it's the last thing I ever do with Black Ballad. And you know, it wasn't a pessimistic thing, but you know, when I was thinking about this, you know, a lot of publications were closing down around me. Some were mainstream, and some were Black owned. And you know, media is going through a very tough time. It's going through a really tough time. And I think, like, I was just kind of like, if someone said to me, you know, this is the final year of Black Ballad, what would you want to do? I wanted to do this. And I said, you know what, and I'm not saying this is going to be that. I'm not saying that we're closing, nothing like that. But it was just kind of, I wanted to celebrate, and I wanted to do something that was going to challenge me, and I was going to take a leap of faith. And I said, I'm going to do this Weekender. And I said, I had the vision for it. I was like, we're going to have these different rooms. We're going to bring the editorial to life. So, you know, work and money is like really important to our women. So is health, and so is like motherhood and family. And so is beauty, and so is books. And I was like, what if we were to have these rooms that are all mini festivals, and then in the middle we had a massive shopping experience, which is a mix of Black owned and mass market. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna bloody do it. So the Weekender happens in August, and it is exactly that. It is gonna be 2 days of an amazing immersive shopping experience for Black women. And then there's going to be these amazing talks and panels that you can attend. We have amazing women speaking, such as Candice Brathwaite, Renita Lodge speaking. If anyone's familiar with Nadine White, the journalist, she's speaking. Bola Soul, Kelechi Okafor, who was in our Google campaign, and we've worked a lot with over the years. To My Sister's podcast is speaking. There's a lot of like Black women. Like, there's something for everyone. If you're not a book babe, but you're a beauty babe, you've got something. If you're not a beauty babe, but you're on, you know, work and money, you know, you're there. I keep saying I'm going to be in the work and money and motherhood room. I'm trying to figure out how I can be in both rooms at the same time. Those are the rooms I want to be in. And I just want this experience for Black women to actually, my hope for the weekend is that Black women go in and they get to buy a lipstick they've always wanted, but they get to meet and have fun with other Black women, but they get to go to a talk that's going to push them to take the next step in their career, or they're going to go to a talk that's going to make them feel like they're doing okay as a working mum, or they're going to go to the talk where it's going to push them to be like, you know what, I actually need to call my doctor actually, or like I need to push harder. And that's just my dream for the Weekender. And I'm so excited. It's coming together. We've got some amazing brands on board. Just Eat are creating a whole Black-owned food court with like three Black vendors who are going to be like, yeah, so you haven't even got to go out for food. You have not got to leave this place for 48 hours. Penguin are creating a book room with only Black authors, like so many different talks. So it's amazing. And I think, I think it's a real moment for the culture. We've actually, for the first time, we're allowing men to speak. We've actually got a black masculinity panel, which, is something that, people, from some of the stuff we've done, people wanted it. Black women wanted to do it. So it's absolutely an amazing thing I think we're going to pull off. Thousands of black women in one room. I mean, why not come?
I just think it's phenomenal what you're doing. And loads of stuff there resonate with me again, because I guess, I think first thing is, one of the first times I ever went to an event and it was just for black women was probably one of the most life-changing moments to me, because I sat in this room and all these things I've ever thought about myself and all the reasons that I go into stuff with thinking of myself in a certain way, or thinking I can't believe in myself, or I come across in a certain way, I realised that all these other women felt the same way, and they were talking about it. I was like, oh my God, it's not just me who thinks like this. This is all these other women are like this, and they all have the same worries because they've been told X, Y, Z all their life growing up. And it really, really changed it for me. And I suddenly felt understood, for the first time. And it was just honestly life-changing. And again, what you're saying about how they have this in America, but they don't have it here. And when you talk about Ebony magazine, do you know what's funny? I was actually in Ebony magazine once. Oh. Yeah, because of what I've done in chess, right? So in chess, in the US, there was not a black female chess master.
Oh, wow.
And on the US rating list, I'm the highest black female rated player there is.
Oh, wow.
But I'm not American, but they still
profiled you.
Vote. And because I played in America a lot, and they were like, what can women do in the US? And how can women become a black master? And they were still wanting to promote me. And I've had different journalists in the US do that. Yeah. In the UK, I am told that I shouldn't play for England because I don't look English. There's a huge difference between how I was treated in America, supposedly the most racist country in the world, versus how I'm treated here. And this is why I have this disconnect with people who say stuff about race versus UK versus US. And we've actually spoken about this. I have a whole thing on that, which is another topic for another day. But why is it that the UK find it so hard to put, to praise black people? And I just find that remarkable. And it's, if you think about who's the most famous black people in the US, black excellence is everywhere. In music, in sport, it dominates. And actually in a lot of different higher corporations, it's very normal to find successful black people in the US. In the UK, I think it's rare. I struggle to know that many. Obviously, we've got a whole billboard of there plenty, but but that's because people like yourself are highlighting it. I don't think society does.
I think what America do is that they highlight probably black people more, but then obviously they make up a bigger proportion than we do. So and they have institutions where it's their voices, they come together and they have their own publications, and they have different community groups and stuff like that, and their voices are heard more because there's more of them and there's more different groups. I think one of the things that here, where we're smaller and maybe there's not so many of us doing not so many publications, because right now with Black Ballad, I personally struggle to think of another black female publication. If they're out there, please do correct me, because I wouldn't want to offend anybody. But it's hard to keep going in the UK, and I think that's also something that's worth saying. And also, I feel like when Black Ballad was raising money for investment, a lot of people keep saying go to the US because there's black funds. And money is really important when it comes to visibility and who's seen and stuff like that. Black funds in the UK, I don't know if there's any left. I think they're so few and far between. And also, there's a much, I personally think for me, black funds in the UK have a much more narrow view of what they will accept, because, they're trying to get off the ground. Do you know what I mean? Whereas they wanted the next big tech thing, whereas a media thing wasn't quite right for them, because it wasn't going to make them look a certain way, or anything was going to make them, a certain amount of money. Where Blavity in the US, media company was able to get that funding.
Yeah.
Able to get that funding. So we're definitely here in terms of like, you know, every time I see a black woman, black man, black person who's rising up the ranks in certain corporations, I'm like, oh my God, that's really good. It's amazing, like, to do it, especially in, you know, in white spaces. Kudos to you, because I know it must take a lot of fortitude. I think it's what you said though. In this country, we don't like acknowledging it. We don't like celebrating it. And when we try to, people try to silence us. And that's not healthy for anybody.
No.
But come, you know, an occasion where we have to show we're a multicultural society, you'll see all the most black senior people wheeled out because this country loves a bit of D&I.
And I hate that. And it's like, whilst I love that D&I has become more of a topic of conversation, and I think it's needed, and I think diverse teams are the most successful teams. But I hate token diversity, and I hate it when people do it because they're just showing that they are not racist and they support it, and it's not real, because at the end of the day, who's actually getting the promotion, who's actually getting valued, and who's actually getting a voice in the room? Because for me, that's more important than just being on a poster for something.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that what you're doing is so, so, so important. And I hope that more people can understand it and more people can get behind it. What is next? I mean, like, you've got the Weekender. I can't even believe that you're pulling something like that off as well. Like, that's, I mean, this is the stuff that you've got to think about it. Like you said, all that stuff that goes against you, and you're pulling off one of the biggest events around. It's insane, right? And you're doing this, and it shows you how important there is and how much of a need there is that thousands of women want to come to this Weekender and sees how important that is. And it shows me that more of it's needed in this country, because, like, why would so many people come to this one weekend and unless it was really important and people shared that vision? So what can people do to help? What can we do to, you know, amplify this? Because it's obviously needed.
Well, you can follow us on all social platforms. We're Black Ballad UK. Black is in the colour, ballad is in the song, and then UK. Because I know people put an R in it's not Black Ballad. No, it's Black Ballad, as I said. Colour and song in UK. You know, if you want to get a membership start at $4.99. That would be amazing. So there's memberships. And even if you don't want to become a member, subscribe to our newsletter so you get all the notification of what we're doing and stuff. And then, of course, buy a ticket to the Weekender. Bring your friend along. You know, this is for and by black women. We've had some really interesting questions, actually. People have been like, oh, but I'm not a black woman, but you know, I'm thinking of getting a ticket with my friend. You can come. Black women are just a priority. Black women will always be the priority. So it's not like we're saying no one else can come. But getting a ticket to the Weekender, you won't regret it.
And I think that's important, though. I think that people who aren't black women could still come, because, you know, if you want to learn about that culture and you want to understand more about what black women go through and how you can help, people are going to want that. We you know, we'd want more people to understand and try and help, and you're not going to turn away allies for sure.
No, and also being respectful to black women. People have different partners and friendship groups. Like, you know, you know, your partners may not be, you know, the same race as you, or your friendship group, you know. And sometimes, you know, when you go into a new environment, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking, like, because I'm a terrible networker. Every time I have to network, I feel like the levels of anxiety, and I'm like, oh my God, and I ring a friend and be like, oh my God, do you want to come with me? Because I don't want to be by myself. So I get it. So some people might not want to come by themselves.
Yeah.
So if you're a black woman, definitely come. But, you know, if you come by yourself, you will make friends, because that's one thing about the Black Ballad community. As black women, we are looking to connect with other black-minded black women. We're looking to have conversations and just have a good time and have enjoyment. But yeah, getting a ticket to the Weekender, you won't regret it.
So you said that if this was the last thing you ever did with Black Ballad, that you wouldn't regret it. But you know it's obviously not going to be the last thing you do. This is unbelievable. So what is your big vision? What do you see Black Ballad doing now? Like, now you can think, you've really been on all the billboards, you've created the biggest weekend. I want to know what's next.
I'd love to see how the Weekender does this year. That would be really
smash. You're going to smash it. That's fine. That's a given.
If it goes well, is this something that becomes more regular? That is a huge thing for me and gets bigger, because we've been digital for so long. It's like the time to bring it offline. That would be amazing. I think also for me, I'm really interested in you know, we've been doing some really amazing things with brands at the moment, like getting Black women into, we were in Garnier the other day, we had like a skincare masterclass, getting Black women into brands. And one of the things I write my newsletter every week, but one of the things I found a real passion for is getting brands to hear Black women, because if you're going to spend your hard-earned cash on items to Black women, no, brands need to do the work and actually like think about how you want to be communicated to. I've been really enjoying the work we've been doing with brands in terms of like getting Black women in the door and touching the products and trying before they buying, and the joy it brings. I love that. So I want to do some more stuff with brands, of course. I want to make sure we're serving Black women outside of London. It's super important to me because, I mean, Brexit is Brexit because everyone thought life revolved around London. But how can we tell the stories of Black women who live in Preston? How can we tell the stories of Black women who live in Cardiff? How can we continue to tell the stories of Black women who live in different cities in Scotland? We've never done an event in Scotland. We've never done an event in Wales and stuff like that. And, you know, all of those things, you know, like anyone running a business is cash, and it's like, how do you make it work? But I really want us to spread our influence outside of London and start getting out to those different countries. And my overall goal is I actually want to be the publication for Black women in Europe.
But I think we should be. I don't think you should hold back. We've already done so much. Yeah. That's exactly what you should be doing.
And people are apparently sliding into the Weekender. So I'm like, maybe that's the first step to doing it. So that's kind of like the vision of where I want to go to. And I think like making sure we're serving Black women outside of London and starting in different parts of the UK and going outwards, that's where I want to be.
I love it. And I can see that happening. And I hope it does. And thank you so much for being on today's podcast. It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me.